Today's lesson, it's snow, quick, easy, and loose. I'm showing how I mixed my colors because I think that's important too. I'm starting with my scene already drawn out, and if you want to copy a line drawing, you can print one out from my website, the lessons on the e-course page. I'm trying to get a little bit of golden glow, so I mixed my lemon yellow and permanent rose to make a bit of an orange for the background sky. For the blue, I'm using a mixture of cobalt and cerulean, and the blue is actually going to be the color of the snow. It looks very dark while it's wet, but it'll dry so much lighter, you'll be amazed. I'm putting in one tall snow-covered tree, and everything else is snow-covered, but the background's going to be very nondescript, greenish, brownish. And I mix some green and some orange to put in there. I'm working flat, so the paper is trying to bow up a little bit on me. I'm holding it down with my finger. I'm a little lazy to stretch my paper, and if you don't wet the whole thing, it will bow up. I'm just dropping in some background colors. And now I'm going to paint the red building. This is all just the first layer. I'm making my red darker at the top by mixing in some of the green and some of the blue, and I'm leaving a line of white between the red at the top and the background color. Although at the bottom it may spread a bit, but I don't mind. Since my paper is buckling, I'm getting kind of a puddle right there, so I used a thirsty brush to lift it up. I also took a brush with clean water and spattered it on to give a little texture. You can lift up paint with the thirsty brush, and I'm lifting up some lines in the red. I don't really want a line back there, so I'm taking a brush just to smooth it out while it's still damp. At this point, that's the basic first wash. And I'm sprinkling a little bit of salt in the background to give it even more texture. Now I dry it. This is the reference photo. And so I know where I'm going. I'm just kind of copying some of the white areas, the snow-covered limbs on this tall tree. In my line drawing, I'll have these drawn in for you, so you can just use graphite paper and trace them on if you'd like. Okay, those are the areas I'm going to leave blue. I'm making my green with phthalo blue and yellow, which is a little bright, so I added some of the red to tone it down. And I'm filling in the green of the tree behind the snow areas. And you can have them stick out a little bit. Now I don't mix up one color green and use that entirely. I dip my brush in the light green, and I dip my brush there in the dark green. And I just paint the colors side by side so that I get some variation. As long as your colors have variation, they won't look flat. I want some of this a little darker, so I add more of the red to my green. And just paint in between. The different colors spread on the paper, and they end up with a nice look. As I continue down the tree, I add a few very dark areas made with mixing more green and more red, and continue to vary my washes. It didn't hurt to have a little purple in with that green either, because that gives you a nice touch. So I put some purple in down by the house, and when it dries, there should be a little bit of blue or purple showing over there. The areas under the snow on the bushes, I'm going to paint exactly the way I painted the tree, dipping my brush in some dark purple, some dark green, some light green. When I get those painted, I want a little bit more dark area on the right side, but I don't want anything definite like a tree. So I put down some dark, put some yellow right with it, and then paint some areas with clean water or a little more green, just to let it blend on the paper. All I want to do is get a value in over there. I like the way the orange and the green mixed at the top of that area. Okay, my red barn needs at least another coat of paint, maybe two. And I'm using more paint and less water this time. I'm making it fairly solid red. And I don't want the red in the barn to be the only red, so I spatter a little red into this drying area of foliage. That makes it more exciting. The dark I made with the red and the green and the purple, I put right at the top and pull it down, and then put a watery red in between the lines. And at this point, I'm happy with the color on that house. Now I'm mixing up more cobalt and cerulean blue. If you would like to make your snow more realistic, you can go back and shade in the snow as much as you want, or you can re-wet it with your brush and lift up some of the color, or you can add white. The white I'm using here is called Pro White by the De La Roni company, but any watercolor white or acrylic white will work. You can see where it's still a little wet, the white is blending up. I'm not worrying about that at this point. So you can put white back on top, add a little more glow or clean up edges. For the foreground, I don't want it to be really dark, but I want a hint of color. So I scrubbed on a little bit of color and blended it out with water. The last step is spattering some white onto my paper. You can do this by tapping your brush, or you can use an old toothbrush. Now, I didn't like the yellow just fading off into the distance, so I put a little bit of the blue around the edges to help keep the viewer's eye in my picture. But there we go. A very easy snow scene. I hope yours turns out better than mine. Happy painting!